Good morning! This is Bill from Curious Cars and Auto House of Naples on a muggy and shitty Florida Friday. It's already humid, there's moisture in the air. You know, I haven't really done much this morning and already I feel moist and I feel like things are taking a wrong turn. It's, you know, and there's just nothing I can do about it. You know, the weather's hot now. It's going to be hot for the next few months, and it's just absolutely going to suck. And I've got absolutely no hope of getting out of this area during the summer months because I've got to keep the ball rolling. And meanwhile, you've got guys like Peter, you know, with this fancy house back here, running around with Tinderellas, jetting off to Europe and lighting cigars with $100 bills and doing whatever it is that I had lunch with him yesterday. And I mean, you could just see the lack of stress in that guy. You know, he sold out, he took the cash, he left me to the wolves, and now he's off having the time of his life, and I hate him for it. But I also love him like a brother. But what the hell are you going to do? Speaking of brothers, he's not talking to me after that little double dip story in the last video, which I stand by. I stand by that story 100%. I don't care how mean and angry Ulf is over it. I mean, to double dip right in front of someone with a revolting mozzarella stick was just too much. And I think he got what he deserved in that one. So he doesn't get an apology, and things are going to remain the way they are until he figures out that he was in the wrong. Animals, nothing. Just absolutely nothing. I saw one rabbit this morning, and he was just huddling off in a corner somewhere, so he really wasn't up to anything. So I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm not complaining, since obviously I don't want a bunch of animals around me, but it also feels weird. I wonder if they're not regrouping somewhere, having a little communication. I do hear that bird. There is some creepy bird up in the tree somewhere that's watching me, but haven't seen him and otherwise haven't seen much else. So animals aren't doing much. You know I promised a New Yorker. It's coming. I swear to God it's coming. One little seat repair, and it's been in the trim shop for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You know, I mean, I understand when you're busy, but for Christ's sake, man, come on, pump it out. Pump it out. Give a guy his New Yorker back. It seems like a long time to have a car without finishing it. And the IROC project is continuing. I know I promised to post a little snippet of that. I'll try to do that today. But I've got a 1989 IROC Z that I'm kind of resuscitating just to use as a driver. The way that I did that Datsun a while back, the 300ZX. I'm going to play with it for a while and then, you know, regret selling it after a few months. So we'll see what happens with that. And that'll bring us right into this topic. And this, I know this is going to be a short video because honestly, I mean, how long can one talk about a Chevy Astro? So we'll see. But I have a feeling this is going to be like a 25-minute video tops. And I'm glad, because sometimes you just got to get one in that normal people, you know, will watch and not think, you know, what is this idiot rambling on about for 45 minutes? So that's going to be this video right here. And we're very quickly just going to say vans. You know, I don't know that I think I did a conversion van a while back, but I didn't really get into it. But vans are a big part of American culture, and frankly, they get a bad rap. And yeah, just because they're the preferred transport of rapists, serial killers, hippies, stoners, religious organizations, suburban Italian-American fathers, and of course Mr. T. But it's not entirely fair, because beyond playing a starring and important role in America's seedy underbelly, they also energize much of the country's business. God, there is a bird. Look at these two, freaking out right there. They're fighting each other. Well, that's good. Hopefully they won't fight me. But anyway, look, so yeah, okay, so vans are all about America's seedy underbelly, but they still do keep the economy rolling. I mean, you've got much of the country's businesses, they use them for cargo space, hauling, mobile tools, shop setups, deliveries of all sorts. A lot of our vendors who come to do work on the cars, they set up whole mobile shops in vans. And as such, they're just an essential part of American culture, an essential part of the business establishment. And yeah, you know, they are what they are, but just lift up there and help me get the couch into the van. If you could get in the van and lift the couch, and oh, thank you. So yeah, okay, so look, I mean, obviously serial killers know a good thing when they see one, but so did American families back in the early 1980s, and that's important. The Astro was GM's answer, and I don't know if I said that. This is a 2003 Chevrolet Astro LT van. I should get into that. And the Astro was GM's answer to the instantly successful and much lauded Chrysler minivan, which was a K-platform-derived masterpiece, absolute masterpiece for Chrysler and their new boss, Lee Iacocca. They took this little front-wheel drive platform, they decided to put a van-type thing on it, and people went absolutely nuts for it. Now, granted, these were sort of rotund people from Ohio in their mid-40s and 50s, but there's a lot of them, and they bought a lot of those K vans, and GM couldn't help but notice. So they came out with their own a year later, and it's a similar formula to what Ford would take with the Aerostar, which came out a year after that. And what it was a rear drive body, well, almost a body on frame, sort of half a body on frame platform, and it really wasn't all that mini when compared to the Chrysler. I mean, it was just 1.5 inches shorter and 2.5 inches narrower than the full-size GM van, but it was 7 inches shorter, which meant that it was garageable, which meant that it worked in the suburbs for American families. They could back it into the garage and have fun. And families needed transport. The full-size station wagon that had carried Americans through many, many, many years were on the decline. You had cafe standards of fuel economy, you had downsizing, you had all kinds of crap happening in the 1970s and 80s that were conspiring against the full-size family wagon. But mid-size and subcompact wagons just didn't work for a lot of people, especially those that were used to big cars. But the minivan did, particularly the GM version, which was rear drive and, felt a little bit substantial. So it was very important, I think, to the people who wanted big cars to have something that they could move into that wasn't small, and that's exactly what happened. So, if a family wanted not just room for the kids and room for moving people around, but if they wanted to tow something, if they wanted a camper, if they wanted a boat, the Chrysler wouldn't do with its little front drive platform, but the Astro did, and that was a big part of its initial success. So, the rear drive Astro with the optional V6 could pull 5,000 pounds and seat 8 passengers. So it was a substantial vehicle, and it made it pretty utilitarian for a downsized platform, if you will. And it drove big, and it felt substantial, and those were also important factors. This has now changed, of course. I mean, at a certain stage, minivans became kryptonite to the suburban mom. Absolute kryptonite. I mean, she needs her vehicle to look like something a wealthy general contractor or, some kind of wildlife photographer or a Russian mobster would drive. I mean, if she's going to be accepted by the other suburban moms, most women would rather die in a house fire than arrive to pick up little Johnny at the soccer game in a minivan. You're just not going to see it happen. And this is a shame because there's few vehicles better suited to family life than the minivan. It's like the Swiss Army knife of the car world. And as usual, women just basically ruin everything. So there's that. But they made Astros and Safaris from 1985 to 2005. There was a refresh. They're mildly different, but, still basically the same. They were all made in Baltimore. And I think it's odd that they named the GMC version the Safari, because that was a going name at the time with the full-sized Pontiac station wagon. We've actually done a Safari wagon, which I'll link to below. And they were both sold at the same time. It's a bit rude, really, to have two different brands within the same family have the same name. It just seemed odd. And frankly, Astro is kind of a strange name as well. There was that commercial, Chevy, Astro, Astro, Astro. Astro. Link to that one as well. That was a very weird commercial from the 80s that, just seemed a bit strange. But I mean, it was immediately identifiable with the Jetsons dog, which was also named Astro. And it may have been intended to answer Voyager's space theme. But either way, I think GM's naming department got pretty lazy on these vans. There was an Astro concept car in 1967, but it was kind of a Corvette type thing. Very swoopy, fancy coupe, and had absolutely nothing to do at all with vans. So who knows? I just think they got the names all wrong, but they did what they did. The Chrysler sold better and came out first. It was obviously the one that got the head start. But the GMM platforms held their own. They sold in really strong numbers through the entire product run. They eventually were discontinued in 2005, basically because GM just never bothered to update them. It was pure corporate laziness. They were selling all right. They were doing fine. GM said, let's keep that product train rolling. And they put absolutely nothing into the idea of continuing them. They just hoard them out until the very end. And I think that's kind of a shame. They really should have kept something like it going. But as I said before, the M platform, which was only the Astro and the Safari, it was sort of a half body on frame. It had rails in the front, basically a giant truck subframe, if you will, connected to a unibody type thing in the back. And it used a B-body suspension up front, which was the same as those full-sized wagons of the 70s and 80s. And that would have felt nice to the big wagon guys, the people who liked big cars. That would have felt very familiar to them. In the back, you had S10s. I think the original Astros had some sort of fiberglassy sort of leaf springs like the Corvette. I'm not sure if they kept that going or not, but either way, they were S10 source leaf springs in the back, an S10 source differential, and it was all basically truck running gear underneath the thing, which helped make it beefier. And on top of that, it was all off-the-shelf GM stuff, not just the suspension, but the engines, the mechanicals, and it was all very simple, and it was all very rugged, and of course it was designed for commercial use as well. So this gave it a tremendous reliability that, wouldn't have been there if they had tried cutting edge stuff. All of this stuff was well established and off the shelf at the time. So it was low maintenance costs, low repair costs. And that, along with the van's utility, its ability to tow, its ability to haul, has created sort of an ongoing cult following for Astros that still persists today. There's a bunch of guys out there who still swear by these things, and the nicer examples still do command pretty respectable prices. They've got a little bit of collectability now in the van world, and they're accepted in the van world basically the way that a Chrysler minivan isn't. I mean, you're just not going to catch Buffalo Bill in a town and country. It's just not going to happen. So, in fact, these were very popular conversion vans. Tuners who made those things, there were Explorer and other companies, took Astros because they could handle it. So they raised roofs, they put big signs, all the stuff they do to full-size vans to make them these sort of urban and highway cruisers for, wealthy mid-Ohioans. They did to Astros as well. And there's a bunch of those things still running around. So, I mean, it is a true van in a way that the Voyager isn't. And that does give it a role in America's sort of ongoing van culture. So, I tell you what, let's have a quick look, very, very quick look at 2003 and what this particular van, would have been released onto. And then we're going to go from there. But all right, so look, in 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia exploded. If you remember, it had that re-entry issue with the heat shielding or whatnot. It got fucked up when they launched, and the re-entry air ended up going between the cracks and killed all the poor astronauts on board. And that was an absolute horror story. I remember that well. Florida's Challenger license plate all of a sudden had to add Columbia to it. And it was a bit of a blow to our space program. Speaking of blows, you had Concorde's final flight in 2003. If you remember, there was that big crash they had in 2000 where There was all kinds of debate about why it crashed. They tried to blame a United Airlines or something flight, which didn't pan out. And essentially a bunch of well-to-do people got vaporized at Heathrow. And it was the beginning of the end for the Concorde. And then September 11 happened. People weren't as excited to fly, and demand just went way, way down. The Department of Homeland Security it had been established. It kind of started operations, you remember all of that with. Oh, God. It's actually led to this recently. We had that Ministry of Truth, or whatever the hell it was, with that sort of insane singing woman. And she was set up to censor Americans on Twitter or something, but that all failed very quickly. So I don't know what the hell DHS is up to these days, but I'm sure they're worth the money. Shock and awe got underway in Iraq. Speaking of the money, Saddam was ultimately captured. The important thing in all of that was that lots and lots of money was spent, and that's something that means more than anything else. So we have all that going for us. There were 393 tornadoes in the United States in 2003, an unrivaled figure before or after, so it was a pretty big tornado year. Lance Armstrong, he lost a ball, but he won his 5th Tour de France, and that sort of pissed off Francophiles everywhere. They never really forgave him for it. And they were also horrified. We started eating freedom fries in 2003 because France wouldn't help us out with Iraq. So French fries went down the toilet and everybody started eating freedom. The do not call list was established, which was great, but it did deprive millions of people, the knowledge that their factory warranties on their cars had expired. The last air-cooled Beetle rolled off an assembly line in Mexico. Toyota overtook Chrysler to become the 3rd biggest auto seller in the United States. And Arnold Schwarzenegger came in after a recall of their governor, Gray Davis. Schwarzenegger got the most votes and became the new governor of California, exciting everybody before finally basically disappointing everyone. So anyway, that was the year in 2003 that this particular Astro was unleashed upon. And from there, we'll take a quick pause. I'll come back. We'll get into the exterior styling. We'll get into the interior, and then we'll go for a spin. So bear with me for one moment. Alright, so we're back, and let's get right into the exterior styling of this thing, which is, I think, what made it absolutely work, because I think it's a really handsome vehicle. It's a nicely modern shape. It took the classic van design, it squashed it down a little bit, made it a little bit smaller, and yet kept everything people kind of liked about vans. It's good looking, and I think that's a big part of the Astro's success over the years. It has a nicely modern shape, it has flush glass, flush door handles, well, they're not flush mirrors, but they're aerodynamic, and it, not only helps it look cool, but made it pretty economical when cruising on the highway. And that was another big part of the Astro success. This refresh, which I want to say it came out in the in the mid-97 or something, all of a sudden they sort of extended the front nose a little bit. The fancier versions, like this one, they got lights that were shared with the Silverado, with the truck. This thing reminds me a lot of my 01 Chevy Silverado that I had. The lights up front are similar, the grill's similar, the wheels are identical, and it went very, very truck-like when that happened. In fact, they put these big 6-lug wheels on it, which sort of surprises me, because I would think GM's bean counters would have shot that down. Why they beefed up the suspension in 03 for a vehicle that was going to be discontinued in 05 does seem a little bit strange. And by 03, the short wheelbase Astro was discontinued. You could only get the sort of extended one, and it added to the van's utility. But I guess, in 85 when it came out, there were a variety of different Astros, commercial and passenger, that you could get. Those had been whittled down over the years, but they still did have that in 05. It's just only one length and one engine and one transmission. In the back, and this was one of the big Astro features, it has what they call Dutch doors, and I'm not entirely sure why they called them Dutch doors. Kind of makes me think of free drugs and prostitution, but But anyway, I guess people like that. I don't know what we got back there in boxes. But these things open pretty wide. I think they'll actually open wider. And with this extended wheelbase version, you could actually fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood in there if you were to remove the seats. And that gave a tremendous use. I think the seats are heavy. You don't necessarily want to pull them out. But if you do have an absolute ton of cargo room. And I guess suburban moms at the time, I don't believe it. I think it's the Italian-American suburban dads. They like to be able to just fling things in through the top there, and it became a pretty utilitarian feature for the car. The original Astros back in '85, they only had the barn door look with the two opening wide rear doors. So very, very interesting shit, I'm sure. Let's have a look under the hood. Oh, God, everything's miserable. One-handed. All right. Oh, God, okay, let's get this up. All right, so here it is. By '03, this was the only engine option. This is the Vortec 4.3 liter, tune port type injection 6-cylinder, and it's a terrific motor. The 4.3 is basically an old small block Chevy with the 2 rear cylinders shaved off. Mechanics love it because it's simple, it's easy to maintain, easy to diagnose, and easy to move down the road. So it's a great engine. Initially, you could get in, the Tech 4, which I believe was an Iron Duke derived. They took this fantastic old shitty Iron Duke engine and they made it no good, and that was the Tech 4. And they had those things in these things. Interestingly, up until '89, you could get these with manual gearboxes. So the commercial versions actually had 4-speed manuals or 5-speed manuals if you wanted it, and I think that was pretty neat. But then in 1990, that was it. That was the end of it. Automatics from there on out. I think first the 700R4, and then became the more electronic 4L60E or whatever the hell it is. So by the time '03 rolled around, this was it. This was your only engine choice in an Astro, was this just about 200 horsepower V6 with a 4-speed automatic. One big sea change in 1990, which was pretty big deal for these vans, is they came out with an all-wheel drive option, which of course people in the northern states liked because it helped them get through the snow and whatnot. And they also ended up with 4-wheel ABS, which was again in a van, wasn't required by federal law, and was a big deal to put, and again made the Astro something that people kind of liked. But I think the biggest thing on these things was the refresh. I think it looks terrific. I love those Euro-style composite lights up front. I like the grille. I like the truck vibe that it gives you with the big 6-lug wheels and the grille up front and the mirrors, the way it mimicked a Silverado. What they did was really play up the fact that this was a pretty beefy minivan, well beyond what you got from Chrysler with its front drive Voyagers and Town and Countries and that sort of thing. So I tell you what, I'm going to get my crap inside the van. I think we've covered enough. I can tell you it's the worst windshield I've ever seen Dalton do, and that's saying something because he's done some horrific windshields, but this thing just looks terrible. Up top you've got a luggage rack. What do you need to say about that? There it is. And the color-coded bumpers, running boards, all that stuff. Yeah, it's all great shit. But anyway, I'll put my stuff in the back, and we're going to hop in, have a quick look at the interior. And I tell you what, actually, before I pause, let's look at the back. Let's look at the interior in here. And then we could just hop up front and go. So, like most vans, even full-size vans, especially full-size vans, it has this one sliding rear door. And when you would open that, you would come up with a variety of different available options inside. This one is an LT, so it's real fancy. You've got these sort of captain chair looking bench seat in the center that can seat 3 but looks like it's for 2. You know, your middle Canadian's going to be unhappy, but the 2 on either side are going to be pretty thrilled. And then you got the same basic setup in the back, so you can fit 6 passengers back there, 2 more up front, and that's, you know, 8 passengers gives you a ton of utility. Anyway, whatever, that's the coronavirus whiskey. The seats do come out, so you get all the cargo room. If we hop up here, we've got the running board and this low step, and I'm sitting back here now, and you can see, you know, everything feels pretty nice. I've got a stereo over here, rear controls for the kiddies. If the kiddies smoke, you got a little ashtray that spits out there. You've got a cup holder. You got these 2 big side windows which you can push out. Nobody's done that in a while, and get some air coming in if you want. But if you prefer air conditioning, this one does have a big rear air setup, so you've got cold air coming back on your neck from there. And everything pretty comfortable and nice up here. So also on the door side, if I were to close this, this window in the door also pops out and gives you nice ventilation if that's what you want. And in the back, I don't know if we should even get back there. Oh, God. Let's see. I'm going to fold this forward. Yeah, there it goes. Now I've got entry into the back. Let's see what we got. On either side, we've got a couple of places to stow a pretty good amount of drugs. I mean, these are probably going to be real popular at drive-by shootings because you could fit an Uzi in there, no problem. And you got one here on the other side. Very, very nice. Nothing in there. And, of course, a couple of spots for your, you know, whiskey or malt liquor. So everyone's going to be pretty chipper about that. And seems like a nice place to be. And, of course, with the extended version, even with these seats in place, you do have pretty decent cargo room in the back. So all very nice stuff. That's center console. There's really nothing to show about that. Nobody really cares. So, all right, let's hop out. Get this back into place. Get the door closed. All right, and now I'm going to get my crap in the back. I got donuts for the guys today, and then we're going to hop in and go for a spin. So bear with me for one moment. All right, so let's hop in this thing and go for a spin. See what we got. Fire it up and move forward out of the sun a little bit. Automatic door lock. So again, with this redesign, they kind of went to a more truck-like vibe with these to make them more like the Silverados. The instrument cluster is almost exactly like the one that I had in my 01 Silverado. The same, almost everything. Steering wheel, very, very similar. They refreshed the dashboard, which, you know, people said was a pretty good improvement. Looked pretty good. You see it has the passenger airbag over there. This is the LT version, so you get all kinds of fancy crap. You got your power windows over here. Nice. You got your power locks. Nice stuff. You got a tilt wheel. You got cruise control with, you know, like the big multi-function stalk over there. Automatic headlamps, which are all very nice. You know, I mean, it's all cheap GM switch gear. There's no question about that. But it's there, and it's nice options. We also got pretty good air conditioning in this thing, so let's get that going, including rear air. We got that going, too. All very nice stuff. Over here you do have this sort of cheap climate control with the chintzy switches, but it works fine. You got a real fancy radio with the cassette deck. This was big in 03. Actually, 03 is late for a cassette, and an under CD player there, so everything looking absolutely lovely. See what we got on the radio. I don't know what the hell that is. I'm on a country station. Let's get back to something rock and rolly. And of course we got commercial, so that's wonderful. Anyway, there's your rear air controls. Here's your rear wiper controls. You got a cigarette lighter, which is great. Whoever owned this thing didn't smoke, so it wasn't the Italian-American suburban father. We got a couple of cup holders. This thing's rigged. I'm looking for another whatever there to fix it, but you got some sort of big pocket here. And this is a traditional van style doghouse where all of this will come out in order to access the rear of the motor to work on it, which is nice stuff. Over here you've got, why are we on full hot? That's wonderful. Defrost. Over here you've got probably is an ashtray. No glove box, but that's fine. This is a power seat that I'm sitting on, which is great. Up top you've got the exact same undetailed mirrors that Dalton doesn't touch, but the ones that came out of the Silverado. And I mean, these things are really for driving, man, highway cruising. So you can put this one on the side, then you can lower another little flap here to keep all the sun out. I mean, these things are really thought out, I have to say. And there's even a little, holy shit, there's even a little extension here to pull out in case you know, you have sun coming in through an area that you can't reach otherwise. You got a compass and trip computer up here. Gives you your economy, your range, your fuel used, all that kind of crap. You got a couple of little map reading lights, and you've got a garage door opener. You got a place to put your Serengeti drivers, and another place to put a little bag of cocaine that the state trooper might not see. So all wonderful stuff. Seatbelt on, and this thing is screaming for one of these accessory center consoles, you know, that you could put in to keep all kinds of crap in. Also has raisable and lowerable seatbelt. I don't know how the hell you do that. Oh, there it is. Yeah, whatever. There it is. Anyway, you could raise and lower the seatbelts to suit your needs. And you know, you do have a nice high seating position, which the suburban moms do want. They just don't want it in a minivan. So there it is. But you've got full gauges, you've got water temp, you've got oil pressure, you've got your fuel, you've got your volts. This is a one-owner van with 82,000 miles, and it you know, drives as such. So it's actually a pretty nice piece, I have to say. But you know, a little bit of wear, what you'd expect on one of these things. You got some cracks in the cheap GM accoutrements. You know, again, they don't put a lot of money into everything, but it works fine. And I do like the dual hump setup. It reminds me of a Corvette a little bit. And you got plenty of oh shit grab handles. You got one there on the dash and one there on the A-pillar. That windshield is so bad. That 4.3 actually runs great, man. I mean, it's plenty of pep, plenty of torque. Again, you got like a 5,000 plus pound tow rating in this thing. About 1,500 pounds worth of cargo if you want it. There's nice people walking their dogs without hats on, so God bless them. But you know, you got nice steering. It feels heavy. It feels heavy. It feels proper. You've got that GM body steering out of the big wagons and the big sedans. And I think that was part of what made people who liked big cars gravitate towards this car, this Astro, because it felt substantial in a way that those little wagons, you know, the J2000s and Buicks and Pontiac, they just didn't. They didn't feel substantial, but this did. And if it had continued, I think this made a hell of a lot more sense than the SUV craze that took over. It has more room. It has 8 passengers. Try that in an SUV. It can still tow stuff. It is the perfect suburban family, soccer mom, family truckster. But of course, it doesn't give women the sexual appeal that they want. So it's thrown out the window and, you know, becomes the stuff of the retired mid-Ohioans. So it's just kind of a shame. The running gear is, again, all off-the-shelf GM stuff. I mean, the 4.3 came out of the trucks. The 4-speed tranny came out of the 4-speed transmission came out of other vehicles. You know, there really was nothing on this thing which wasn't recycled. So it didn't cost GM a hell of a lot to build, and it was a pretty good profit center, you know, for as long as people would buy it. But of course, GM, they get lazy. The thing became antiquated, and you know, when they used it all up, You know, they just dispatched it, and that's an absolute shame. It goes down the road incredibly smooth, very, very smooth. It has big heavy-duty ball joints, front suspension, all the stuff from the trucks, and yet still manages to have a nice, supple ride that is really smooth on your ass in the seat, and feels nice going down the road. So it's just a terrific driver, and it's very good for long trips, very good for anything you want it for. You know, it's just a useful van, and I think that's why these things have such a cult following. They're of course smaller than a full-size van, but they're as tough as one, and they give you a tremendous amount of utility. So anyway, we'll keep everything short. I'll stop rambling on. I didn't show you this. This is, remember I told you Penelope was putting gear together. So I've ended up with 50 of these things. I have to say that I absolutely love them. I'm already using one. I had a lot of coronavirus whiskey out of it this morning, and there we are. So Curious Cars flasks, absolutely perfect. I'm not selling them. I refuse to do it. I haven't figured out how to give them away yet, but I'm going to. So you know, I don't know how yet, but keep an eye out. We'll figure out a way to distribute these things to, you know, people who, God help you, are, you know, real long-term or, you know, dedicated subscribers to this channel. God bless you for your, you know, masochism. But anyway, we'll figure that out as we go. And as always, I really appreciate you guys having a look. I promise you some more interesting shits on the way. With any luck, we'll get that New Yorker soon. And this summer, I'm going to get my ass in gear and start getting some more cars in, start heading to some more, you know, auctions and other places, and we'll figure out how to get some fun stuff on the way. So if you have an interest in this thing, I don't know if it's going to be up on the Auto House website, but it is for sale. So if you give those guys a call, we'll figure out how to get your price on it. And I tell you what, it's a nice old van, man. If you're looking for something like this, you're not going to find many better. So thank you for having a look. Really, really appreciate it. And we will see you with the next one. Take care.